Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's April 26th. It's 2023. We have 8 baseball games to talk about here on today's podcast. We do have some early stuff going on, but we're going to focus on the 2 main slates for FanDuel and DraftKings. FanDuel and DraftKings did some stuff differently in the morning time, so I can't wait to play some DFS day baseball, but I'm going to be focusing today with Tim on this 8-game main slate that they started at 6:35. I'm shocked. They included the 6:30 games. Who would have ever thought? Anyway, joined today by my buddy Tim Buell. You all know him in the DFS streets as TastefulTides. Tim, what's happening, my friend?
Man, not much, Stevie. I had a pretty good, Atlanta Toronto stat going. Got some good stacks going tonight. But I think I'm going to come up a little short. I'll make some money, but not a lot. I think I'm going to win both my bets that I made also, so that's good. Real quick, what did you think of Talladega? I mean, that was a pretty ridiculous ending, right? That was a pretty crazy ending to that race.
What do I think overall? I think it was a snooze fest.
That's what I see. That's what I thought too.
Yeah. And I'm not one that needs a lot of wrecks or anything. Like my strategy at those tracks, I mean, they don't need a lot of wrecks. So, I mean, just frustrating. Like we saw some 3-wide racing, but this new car, I mean, these super speedways are like almost strategy races now. And I mean, that's not what you want to see on those races. You want to see, aggressive pushing and, drivers that don't have a chance to win, have a chance to win. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. I like it better. Okay. I'll say this, right? I liked the cup race better than like if there was like 15 cautions and wrecks and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, is a snooze fest really the right word? Probably not. But 2-wide racing without teams really trying that third line kind of stunk. And then they tried it and then it was working, but I feel like they waited too long to try it. But I don't know what the answer is really, because the Xfinity race was a crapshoot. Finally, the Xfinity drivers were a little aggressive, and that was fun to watch. But again, like I don't need to see 20 cars wreck out. And so really quick, I would rather see that in the Xfinity series because I want them to learn and how to be aggressive in drafting and bumping and stuff and blocking very aggressively. So, Daytona, we watched the Xfinity drivers just drive around. So, I mean, it's catch-22. But yeah, overall,
I'm glad I asked because I watch every race, but I'm just a casual fan. And to me, like I'm not a real expert like you. To me, it seems so boring. It seems so different. It didn't feel like Talladega to me. It didn't feel like that same kind of super speedway action packed. Like I don't need all the crashes, but it just felt so different, and I didn't really enjoy it as much. So that's just my 2 cents.
Now, as a casual fan, before we get into this baseball slate, we'll get there. As a casual NASCAR fan, the last 30 laps when they were running 3 wide and they were pushing and being aggressive, like that's Talladega, right? So had they, but like we go from, if we think back 2 or 3 years ago, we go from like single file racing for 30 laps at Talladega and Daytona to very aggressiveness at the end to now like 2-wide racing, which is better than single file racing at least. But still, I mean, you're not able to pass enough or generate enough runs. And I don't know how they fix that. I really don't. So I would rather the car be safer. Overall, and I think this car has produced really good racing on a lot of good tracks, but they definitely have to figure something out on short tracks and potentially super speedways. But I don't want the cars to be unsafe. Ryan Preece hit Kyle Larson so hard.
That was a nasty one. That was like the worst one I've seen since like was it Almirola broke his back, right? When he flipped like
that one was rough.
Times.
Yeah, Kansas.
That was a rough one. Yeah.
I was at Daytona when Newman got hit and flipped up over the top of the car of LaJoy. And
I remember that.
That was one of the scary because I was at the start finish line in the infield. And I remember just like everything just stopped. Like it was so quiet and man, it was crazy. But all right.
All
got some baseball. 6:35 Eastern start time today. Mason Miller not doing well. Is that what chat's saying? Okay, Angels off to a really good start against Mason Miller. I ended up with a lot of this Arizona Kansas City game, so my night's going to kind of be determined by that. And I have a lot of Canning, so I mean that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping Canning pitch better, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, all right, we got Dodgers and Pirates to get us started here. This game has an 8.5 total. The Diamondbacks a 138 favorite. We got Goslin kind of opening, and we're gonna get like it sounds like Andre Jackson as like a long reliever. He's thrown 2 or 3 innings, so I would assume like we might see Goslin go 2 innings, and then Jackson go 3 innings, and then we get bullpen arms for an inning or 2 apiece. So kind of like a relief situation here for the Dodgers, and then on the other side of this game, Ronzi Contreras. Hey, he doesn't need an opener. He's going to come out. He's going to pitch a normal game. We'll go Dodgers pitcher situation. It's an 8-game slate. Tim, we're not touching this situation, right?
No way. I mean, it's like he's 7,000. He pitched 3 innings, 57 pitches. Like he's not gonna even. I doubt he even pitches 3 innings of this game. Really, the way that they treat their pitchers. So he's an easy X for me. I don't think we have to go much more into that. I think that's a pretty easy X.
And someone in chat just said Sean Manaea is in. Did they play the old loop-de-doopy on us against the Cardinals? That's what
I don't know.
They like, hey, we want to push Manaea back because we want to take advantage of the righties. They roll out some lefties in that Cardinals lineup, and Sean Manaea is in there in the second inning, so that's kind of funny. I wasn't touching that situation anyway, so it doesn't really affect me too much, but it's just funny. A little loop-de-doop. All right, Contreras on the other side of this game. We know Contreras has some upside. Any interest here against the Dodgers?
I mean, kind of. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's the price, right? And also, I think the Dodgers might end up having like a watered down lineup. So it really depends on the lineup. I think they have a couple guys on paternity leave, right? Wasn't Mookie on paternity leave? Wasn't Muncy? Or are they back now?
Mookie's back. Mookie's back. Muncy went on paternity list on Tuesday. But you might be thinking JD Martinez is kind of banged up as well.
Yeah.
He's dealing with that back injury that he's had for like 3 or 4 years for the Red Sox. So
yeah.
So I know we're not getting Muncy. Will Smith is still out, and then Martinez is day to day.
Okay. So I mean, really, I do have a little bit of interest on him just because of his price. He's 5,700. This could end up being a pretty watered down lineup. I mean, obviously, and of course, we're going to know that right at the start of the slate. So if they have everybody back, then maybe not. But if it's going to be a pretty watered down lineup, then I wouldn't mind taking a couple shots in a large field setting.
There's not a lot of cheap options today at pitcher. To sum it up, there's just not a lot of options at cheap pitchers today. So if we do get a watered down Dodgers lineup, I do think Contreras is interesting. I mean, we're going to talk about some of these guys. We have, just not, like I said, just not a ton of upside really in this range. So I think first glance, Sandoval might get some ownership. It's kind of the same situation as Suarez the other day. And I'll bring up the same points when we get there, but I don't like lefties against Oakland if you're not a good lefty. And I don't know if I would consider Sandoval an above average lefty. So I think he'll get some ownership. So, maybe Contreras is a pivot off of him. I think Steven Matz is really interesting in this range, and we'll talk about him when we get there.
Let's talk. Will Smith is on the IL.
Yeah, that's what I said. Will Smith is out. Will Smith, Muncy, and then JD is questionable.
So. I didn't hear that. So yeah, this lineup looks not great as of right now. So yeah, okay. Yep.
The only problem is Contreras strikes out righties at a much higher clip, and they're gonna have a lot of lefties in this lineup. Outman, Hayward, Freeman, Peralta. I think Michael Busch got called up, so he'll be in there as well. So they're going to have enough lefties that I think it matters. But, if you're in this range, I think he could potentially be playable. Let's talk Dodgers bats. What do you like here for the Dodgers?
They're expensive, right? I mean, Freddie Freeman would be the guy that really sticks out at 5,100, but they don't looking at this projected lineup. They don't look like priorities. Like when I first saw, the Dodgers, definitely want to take a look at them, but really, I mean, Freddie Freeman, you can always play Freddie. You can always play Mookie. James Outman, unbelievable young player. Really like to get to him. I mean, it's definitely a viable stack. I feel like in these kind of like mid-range size slates, there's always these games where I don't mind getting little bits and pieces of both sides, right? Like I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of Contreras, but I also wouldn't mind if I'm making 5-10 teams getting a Dodger stack because it's the Dodgers and they're one of the best hitting teams in baseball.
Yeah, so I mean, Hayward, Freeman, Outman would be like my main three. Michael Busch is 2,000. This kid has some pop. I mean, he's a talented prospect. I think he's top 50 overall in baseball. I know he was estimated to be called up at some point this year, but like with the injuries and stuff and like Muncy being out, yeah, I mean, this is a guy that has some upside, so we saw him get his first career start yesterday on Tuesday, and he went 1 for 3 with an RBI, struck out once. Minimum salary still. Grades out as a good raw power hitter. And like I said, top 50 prospect in baseball. Hit 21 home runs last season in AAA. So definitely don't mind him against Contreras. Contreras, like I said, when he does struggle is with lefties. So Busch, Outman, Hayward, Freeman, and then like with the price on like a guy like Busch and Hayward, they're both so cheap. It's so easy to play Freeman and Betts together. So I mean, when you're able to get like the two top hitters, and then you have the two cheap bats where you can still do whatever you want at pitcher, the stack becomes more viable. Hate the ballpark. I mean, this game's in Pittsburgh. We got to remember that.
That's true.
Pittsburgh bats. Any interest here in the Pittsburgh bats?
Not really. Reynolds is out. He'd be my favorite guy. Maybe Zawinski if you needed like a kind of lowish end punt in the outfield, but I'm not really about stacking this team. I know that we don't really know who's going to be out there for the Dodgers, but I'm not really excited to attack them. So I'm going to pass on Pittsburgh.
Shout out to Reynolds too, by the way.
8 years, 109,
106,
right?
I think 106, yeah.
Okay.
That was really cool.
Yep.
On the bereavement list right now, so like you said, he's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool that McCutchen's back, just as a side
note. I do too.
Not that I want to play him in DFS, but I think it's so cool that he's back. I saw him get his standing ovation when the first game. I thought that was so cool. I've been to that ballpark. It's a beautiful ballpark. I love the fans there. I love that city. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me on McCutchen, I don't mind playing him against lefties, but he's very rarely going to make my lineups against right-handed pitching. The only guy that I have some interest in here is Swazinski at 3,200. He's been consistently hitting all season, and he's hitting like extra base hits. He's not just hitting singles, so he would be the one guy that I have interest in this spot.
Yeah.
All right, Houston at no trade clause on that Reynolds contract. You're right, Dave. What's up, YouTube? Hope you're having there's a no trade clause. So I don't think there's an opt out option, which I know he was seeking, but there is a no trade clause. So, what's up, YouTube? Hope you're having a great Tuesday night. Houston at Tampa, no total in this game. It has been confirmed that Brown is going to start for Houston. And then it sounds like it's going to be an opener situation followed by Josh Fleming for Tampa, but it hasn't been fully announced because who knows? It's Tampa. So let's talk Hunter Brown first. He's had 3 starts. He's had some really solid upside in a couple of those games. A guy that was definitely talked about coming into the season. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, definitely a tremendous high-end prospect, right? I mean, he's gonna be a great pitcher. The price though is, I think, a little bit steep for this matchup. So I probably would pass. It's not really, it's not really a lineup that I want to go after. I know that Houston won tonight, but it's not. I mean, Tampa Bay's tough. They're pretty solid top to bottom. So this isn't really. I don't think this is a spot that I want to get to with Brown.
There's gonna be plenty of times that we're gonna play Hunter Brown this season. Above average fastball, really good curveball. We've seen it already this season. Like we know, like his upside, his ceiling is there. The ballpark is fantastic. Do you want to play any pitcher against this team right now? Like any pitcher in baseball, like I feel like they're that good this year. Just a really sound team in general. So
yep.
If you want to chase the ceiling,
I think this Rays team has some staying power. Like, like they're so good top to bottom. Like they don't have like huge standout studs, but like just their depth is amazing.
Very good team. Very good team. Like if you want to chase the ceiling and just believe in the talent, this is a good slate for it. I don't think there's a standout SP1 today. We have some guys that you can play that are okay, but there's not like a standout, Garrett Cole today.
There's no Spencer Strider from yesterday, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Dean, I'm not giving you credit for rubbing his racing. Have you ever watched Days of Thunder? Like you mentioned it. Have you watched it?
Is that our Dean?
That's our Dean. Yeah, he must be bored.
I got a story I gotta say about Dean. Right before he got on the show, he messaged me and said, "Hey, great lineup in the 222." And I'm thinking like, yeah, it's pretty good. And then he goes, "Oh, oops, I didn't realize you were out of innings." Like you gotta mush me like that? Like you're gonna like we're not even on the show together. Like, and he mushes me. He DMs, he slides into my DMs to mush me. Like, come on, Dean. Hilarious. Come on, Dean.
Shout out to Cheese. Last night he was sweating 100K on live when we were doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Did not flinch one time. Did not let it affect him at all.
Right.
Dury's 9th inning or 10th inning home run in the 10th cost him $50,000. He finished second in the 888 for $50K. And I'm sure he's not mad about it, but yeah, 9th or 10th inning home run by Dury is the only thing that beat him there. So
that actually made me quite a bit of money, but not $50K. But I needed that home run. I had Drury. So
Tampa bat or pitching situation. We're not touching this situation, right?
No way. I would have some interest in these Houston bats. Not crazy about the ballpark, really, like we already mentioned. Alvarez is day to day. So that kind of takes the best kind of one off the board. I think Kyle Tucker would be kind of an interesting one off, but I don't think I'm really that high on Houston as a stack.
Yeah, I don't think I'm stacking. Tampa bullpen really good. So like if at any point Fleming gets in trouble and they just go to the bullpen, I don't see it being something that like really works out. Yeah, I just overall not a spot that I love. Not a spot that I love. Like if I was going to play anybody here, it'd probably be like a guy like Jeremy Pena because shortstop's usually kind of weak and he's a guy that has upside. But yeah, I'm probably not going there. And then on the Tampa side, they're expensive now. Like the pricing has caught up to the production. Right. If you're going to pay down at pitcher, they're definitely a stack you could target against a young pitcher. But this young pitcher has some stuff, man. He's not like this pushover young guy. He's yet to allow a home run. He's faced Atlanta. He's faced Minnesota. He's faced Texas. His worst start this season was against Detroit, which is hilarious. Put a bad taste in people's mouths early. So like it's kind of worked out recently. Any interest here in the Tampa bats?
No, not really. Hunter Brown's too good of a pitcher, not a good enough ballpark. Their prices there's no real discount, So like I'm not going to pay $6,200 for Rosarena or $5,300 for Franco or $5,200 for Diaz. Like it's just If ownership comes out tomorrow and they're going to be like a 1% stack, and I'm making 20 teams, then maybe I would do like one skinny stat, because I do think this team is good and I do think this team has a ceiling, but I don't think this is the spot. And these prices are really tough.
Seattle at Philadelphia. This is a game that we potentially have some weather. We'll have to see what Kevin Roth has to say. Looks like the Northeast has a little bit of weather today in general, because I know the Mets have some potential weather, but it's so hard to tell night before. So we're going to break it down, and we'll let Kevin Roth tell us if we're playing it or not playing it later in the day. We got Walker and Gilbert, 8 total pick'em game. Gilbert, I mean, he was pushed back. He had some muscle spasm. So this is the first time he's pitched in 8 days. Not the greatest start, but not the worst start against Philadelphia last time out. Any interest in him against Philadelphia here?
I'd say a little bit. I am a little bit worried about that injury, though, too. You know, like, you get your start pushed back. You haven't pitched in 8 days. This isn't an amazing matchup, but I think like the skill set, when it relates to his price tag of 9,100, I think is decent. I think Philly is a good team, but not a great team. I think that he does have a ceiling in this matchup, but I wouldn't be like jumping to the window, like getting to the window, like hurrying to play him. But we don't have a lot of options on the slate, like you said. So we have to make some uncomfortable decisions, especially in GPPs. So I think that he's okay, but he wouldn't be like my first choice.
Yeah. He's fine.
Right.
I think if he's pitching, I think he's okay, like health-wise. I don't think this is not a guy. I mean, they've been very careful with him. So I don't think like if he's up here, he's going to be like thing, but it sounds like it was all kind of just, we think he's okay, but we're going to give him a couple extra days because it's April. I mean, Seattle has a great chance to make the playoffs this year. This team's really solid. So I don't mind Gilbert. Again, I don't really have like this guy's a lock for me type of situation today. I mean, I'm going to play some Gilbert. We're going to talk about a couple other pitchers today. But yeah, I mean, I think he's okay. I can say with certainty, though, I'm not playing Tajon Walker at 9,200 against Seattle on the other side of this game.
Seattle, again, I want to see ownership, but I think Seattle might be one of my favorite stacks on the board. Like, I think Walker's kind of like dust, and he gives up home runs. I mean, again, got to check on weather, right? Like, if it's cold, rainy, wind blowing in, that might change my take on this. But I really like getting to Seattle. Like, we got the big dumper for 4K, Kelenic for 3,900. Of course, you got J-Rod for 5,800, Ty France 4,700. I mean, that's a little expensive for Ty France, but Kelenic, big dumper, J-Rod, like that stack right there. I love that, and I hope that the weather cooperates, and I hope that ownership cooperates.
Yeah.
And Suarez is only 3,900 too. I missed that. He's not even 4K. Like, I really like that. I really like that stack.
Yeah, Walker has been generating more ground balls this season, but he's still struggling with command, leaving the ball out over the plate way too much, walking guys. So I think this is a great stack today. I'm a little concerned about like the ground ball rate, but I mean, this guy can't continue to have a 60+% ground ball rate. I mean, people are going to start hitting him up, and like he's just generating so many ground balls with his like splitter, and like hasn't been a thing in the past. So I don't know. I think
I don't trust these. I don't really trust what he's doing this season versus what he usually does, right? Like, maybe it's just, I'm hoping that it's not real. Maybe it is real, but I'm willing to gamble that it's not real. And I think, again, if Seattle's going to go low owned, then I really like to get to them.
Yeah, I hope it isn't today's Josiah Gray, because I mean that was anything but good. Big dumper is Cal Riley Richie in chat. So
sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm so used to calling him that.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the Seattle stack outside of Julio is pretty cheap. So
Yep.
definitely interested in this stack. And then on the Philadelphia side, Gilbert's a good pitcher. Really, I can't wait for Harper to be back in this lineup. It's such a more stackable lineup with Harper. I know like one guy shouldn't make a huge difference, but he does. It just adds that like one more bat that you need that you feel really comfortable with. I will say like Marsh is hitting the ball really well to start the year. So like if you wanted to take some shots on him, I wouldn't like talk you off of it. He's just expensive now. Like he's 4,700, but he just keeps hitting. I mean, he's earning a spot on this like team, like on an everyday role because he's not stopped hitting.
Right. No, I agree. I don't mind taking a little bits and pieces here. Like Philly's definitely a competent team. I think Gilbert is a good enough pitcher that I'm going to stay away for the most part. And
Oh yeah,
you know,
I guess, yeah.
and like Bryson Stott was like super cheap for the beginning of the year. Now he's 41. So like I can't really get to him as like a value piece.
Yeah, because I mean, all he did was hit for like a month and a half straight, or weeks
Like
and weeks.
at like 3,100. You know, he was
Yeah.
like the cash game darling. So
What is going on in this Kansas City Arizona game? These pitchers are not good. Why are we not getting runs? Gosh, I love baseball. I love the variance of baseball. Maybe because I love NASCAR so much, and I love the variance of NASCAR. But
it's like
man,
every day's
baseball.
Talladega. It's like every day's Talladega. You're like, oh, I'm winning. Oh no, now I'm in last. Yep.
Baseball variance sometimes. Like these guys aren't good pitchers. A lot of baseball left. All right, Washington at New York facing the Mets. Like I said, watch the weather in this one too. We got Gore and Senga, 8 total. The Mets a 190 favorite here. Any interest in Mackenzie Gore?
I mean, I kind of do, just because the general, like we said, pitching's pretty weak. I think that his price is okay. You know, like I think that he could have a big game. I think he's a competent pitcher. The matchup obviously is not the best, but I think he's worth a shot. You know, there's a lot of guys on the slate that, you know, we're going to say that about. You know, there's a lot of these, you know, so pitchers against these so offenses. So, you know, I think he's all right. But I wouldn't go too carried away if you're playing, you know, a lot of teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's very playable. He has a 29% K rate this season. Really, I mean, he's kind of been reverse splits this year. He's generating a ton of ground balls and a ton of strikeouts against right-handed hitters. And I mean, they have been platooning pretty heavily. And like their lefties, if they do leave them in there, they're not like the best lefties against left-handed pitching. Like Vogelbach, I mean, that's just a strikeout waiting to happen. So love that. I mean, so I do like we just watched Josiah Gray look like Cy Young on Tuesday against this team, and that was it was very interesting to see because like this is a team that doesn't typically do what they did, but they're a lot better against right-handed pitching. So I think this spot is really interesting for Gore, kind of in that weird price range.
And
I don't believe in Josiah Gray. I was watching that game. Me and my wife were watching a show, and I always leave baseball up on my computer. And I was watching that game, and I was like, man, I'm gonna get so many messages today about Josiah Gray, and I'm like, I still don't believe. I don't believe it. I can't wait to look at the stats tomorrow. I'm gonna find something that makes me feel better about everything I thought about Josiah Gray yesterday, but he pitched well. So yeah, I mean, Gore is a strikeout guy. His biggest issue is walks. This team is a team that doesn't strike, or I mean, they walk a really high clip. So it'd be really interesting mix. I mean, but at 7,500, 6 innings, six ish strikeouts, and we're off to the races here. So I think he's very playable.
And I think that people will kind of be, I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but just kind of like talk themselves off of playing him because it's kind of the Mets. You know, like I think the Mets are chronically overrated, you know, by the public. That's my opinion. So I think that, you know, people might stay away from Gore.
All right. Senga on the other side is, I mean, he's expensive.
Yeah.
Gets one of the best matchups in baseball. Washington, not a great team. They walk very little. His biggest issue this season has been walks. I mean, that potentially helps him here. I mean, the most expensive pitcher on DraftKings, second most expensive pitcher on FanDuel. I mean, you really got to pay up for him. And he showed some upside against Miami the first two starts this season, but he really hasn't been great in the next two starts. And I mean, Oakland and San Francisco in those ballparks. So I'm a little concerned. I mean, he's definitely a guy that's been giving up some home runs, and that's concerning. And obviously, he's struggling with like walks. Are we paying this price for him today in this matchup?
So when I was looking at the games before the show started, I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to say about him because, I know we're going to talk about him, right? And I know the matchup's amazing. That's obvious. But I was like, I think he's too expensive. Like, I'm not. It's going to be an ownership thing for me. Like, if he's going to be super chalky, I don't really want any part of it. Okay. But if he's going to be low owned, if he's not projecting well, because that we all follow projection systems, like if he's not projecting well, that might make me lean more heavily on him, right? My first instinct makes me feel like he's too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, the walks, the command, the struggles against lefties, and I mean, like realistically, they're not good lefties, but we're looking at a potential 5 or 6 lefties in this lineup. So
Right.
I think I'm with you as far as let's see what the lineup looks like. Let's see what ownership looks like. If he's going to be low owned, I'll take some shots. If he's going to be high owned, I mean, Alcantara, Elder, Gilbert, Brown, like all these guys have similar like upsides and they're much cheaper. So
Right.
All right, let's talk about this next game. Bats. Almost went right past the bats. That tells you just how much interest I have in bats in this game.
I was gonna say I don't have much to say about these bats.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody for Washington. You could always play Pete Alonso, right? Like he would be a super contrarian one-off, I would imagine. I mean, he's at Lindor, same kind of idea. But in terms of a stack, I mean, this is such a weird slate already, right? Like we've gone through half of it. There's not really one pitcher or one offense that we're like, yep, that's the premium stuff, right? That's going to be the chalk, right? So I think it's going to be a fun contrarian kind of. I don't think there's going to be a lot of condensed ownership on this slate, is what I should say.
Sorry, when my baseball buddies I grew up with just text me their baby was born. That's exciting.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've known him since I was like we played baseball together for a very long time. I don't mind. Okay, so probably not going to play a lot, but I don't mind Candelario on the Washington side. We've seen Senga. He has some home run issues.
Mm-hmm.
He's a lefty with some power. I mean, it's hit or miss. But his skill set would be the one that I'd be like targeting here against Senga. And then on the Mets side, like you said, you can always play Pete Alonso, especially against a lefty. So like if you want to take some shots on Alonso, Lindor is another guy that hits left-handed pitching really well. They're just really expensive. So I mean, if you're not playing Senga and you're saving some money, maybe you'll have an extra, couple bats in your lineup because of doing that. And then like he's cheap, but I like cheaper options. Like if you're doing like a 3-man, Tommy Pham, he has not been good at all this year, but I mean throughout his career he's hit left-handed pitching well. But he's been really bad. He's been really bad this year.
Yeah.
All right, Miami and Atlanta.
I'm done with Tommy Pham. I'm done with him.
Yeah. He's hitting 2 home runs tonight now. Okay. Miami at Atlanta, Alcantara against Elder. One of the best pitching matchups that we have on the slate. 8 total. Braves a 160 favorite, and I think that's more of Miami's offense than it is Alcantara. Let's start with Sandy Alcantara. I mean, he's shown big upside. Like we know it. Like this is a guy dating back to last year. He has big upside. He has a big arm. Tough matchup here going up against Atlanta. Atlanta strikes out. His strikeout rate is down this season, which is somewhat concerning. He kind of turned it up last start. What are we doing here with Alcantara?
Yeah, Atlanta has the 5th highest strikeout rate so far.
I always say his name wrong.
Alcantara. Sorry. But yeah, whatever. I mean, this is the morning grind. Who cares, right? So
listen, okay, give me a little credit, people. I've gotten a lot better over the years. I've put in the work.
Last time I was on a show with you, we kept calling the player by his first name because we couldn't even try his last name.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. So, but Atlanta's got the 5th highest strikeout rate, right? So, I mean, they're a great offense, great team. I love Alcantara. He's the guy that I hope I can get to tomorrow. He's my favorite pitcher on the slate. I don't think he'll be chalk. I think I love both pitchers in this game, right? This would be my favorite, 1A, 1B pitching situation. So it's these are my 2 favorite pitchers. Alcantara would be my 1A guy though, because I think he can shut down this team, and I think he's got a really, really big ceiling in this matchup.
I think he'll have lower ownership too, just because he's facing Atlanta. So
I'd agree with you, but I just don't know who the chalk's going to be.
The other side of this game, we'll talk about him in just a second.
Okay.
I think
you don't think Alcantara's gonna be the next chalkiest?
I mean, he might. It's tough to say.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's enough cheap bats that like Singer could be popular.
Yeah,
with his matchup, but just a couple notes here, right? Someone that like really has struggled with strikeouts to start the year. Finally, last start was up to his velocity. He was 98.5 on average last start. I think that's why we saw the increase in strikeouts last start, kind of in that like 97 to 97.5 through those first 3 starts. Huge uptick in velocity. We saw his slider was up from like 91 to like 92.3. Changeup was up in velocity. So the velocity as a whole was up in the last start. And if we look, his swinging strikes was up. His strikeout rates were up. He was missing more bats. He was getting more swings outside of the strike zone. Huge, right? He got BABIP in the Philly game. He got super unlucky in that game. I mean, it's not unlucky when you give up 10 hits. I don't care what BABIP says. When you give up 10 hits, you're just not on it today. Huge bounce back spot against Arizona. The velocity was up. I think that's a big note. They gave him a couple extra days because of a little bicep thing, but I love this spot for him. Am I going to play him on my main lineup? I'm undecided. I really am. I'm going to play Elder. We'll talk about him in just a second. I love the strikeout upside. He will be a guy that I'm definitely targeting in tournaments. Atlanta is a very good offense. There's no way around it. There's no sugarcoating it. They're a very good offense. So do I trust them enough to play him in my main lineup? Probably not. Do I trust him enough in tournaments? Yeah, you have to trust the ceiling. The ceiling is massive. If the bicep thing's an issue and he's down another mile per hour again this start, Atlanta could smush him. So if he's not generating the swinging strikes, it could be bad. Going to the other side of this game, Miami is atrocious. This lineup is not good. Again, they have one good hitter, Jazz Chisholm. Elder is someone that was talked about a lot last year. Did not perform at all. But we're starting to see why he was talked about a lot last year as a big prospect, a guy that could be a major league ready pitcher. And I mean, he's top 10 in the Braves organization. We know how deep this team is. He throws a lot of junk. He generates a lot of swinging strikes. He doesn't get blown up. I mean, he's through 4 starts. He's faced Houston, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Kansas City, and he's yet to allow a home run. So I think if we're looking for like floor plus some upside because of the matchup, I think Bryce Elder, 95 plus pitches, 6 to 8 innings here, maybe a run or 2, and just comes out and does his thing, scores 25 plus points, and we call it a day.
Yeah, just so everybody knows how I play. I play one cash game team, and then I play one single entry 3 max team, and then I usually do like a 2v2 or 3v3. Elder is 100% going to be in my cash game, right? Like 100%, 100% going to be in my single entry team. Also, Alcantara is the one that I'm a little bit, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it for cash, right? But Elder, man, like he's going to be the clear chalk. He's got a huge ceiling, great floor in this matchup. It's I mean, pitching is weak on the slate. I mean, it's really weak. So I'm fine. I'm fine getting really overweight on great pitchers. And if I would need to spread out at my bats, then I'll do that. But to get overweight on the best pitchers is my philosophy. So that's I think he's easily the top option of the day.
All right, let's talk bats. Any interest in Miami?
No. Yeah, I don't care about
no issue.
I don't care. I don't care about I don't care about leverage. I don't care about contrarian one-offs with that team.
There's certain teams that you just get to and you're like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care about leverage. So
yeah,
they're just one of those teams where if I get beat here because Elder struggles and he gives up his first home run of the season, so be it. Honestly, he allows a lot of hard contact, but he generates so many ground balls and swinging misses with his like sinker slider combo that I don't want to touch it. So, Atlanta. I think if I'm playing Atlanta, it's a stack. I don't think I will stack them. I typically only play 3 teams. I don't think they make the cut for me today. Alcantara is really good. Alcantara is really good. So I could see Atlanta, like I said, if the bicep is an issue and his velocity is down again, I could see Atlanta punishing anybody that's not on like 100% on their game.
I really like that you said if you play them in a stack. If Alcantara doesn't have his A stuff and they get to him, it's off to the races for Atlanta. And so this is leverage. Like this is going to be low owned. They've got a ceiling. You can get, a really good contrarian stack. I'm not going to do it because I don't play 10 teams, 20 teams. But I think if I did, I would have no problem getting to a stack of Atlanta.
That's really it. I don't have anything else to add on this one. San Diego at Chicago, taking on the Cubs, 8 total pick'em game. Just a quick little weather check on Wrigley. 42 degrees, 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in is what we're looking at here. We got Waka and Smiley. Any interest here in Waka?
Did you say the wind's blowing in?
About 10 miles an hour, yep.
Yeah, so it's still probably pretty cold there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's that kind of does change things a little bit. Because I wanted to get to both sides of these bats really, but if Wrigley is so wind sensitive, and if it's going to be wind blowing in cold, I mean probably not still, but it definitely takes my interest away from the bats for sure. Like I think Waka. I think Waka's a pretty bad pitcher, but he does flash these odd ceiling games from time to time. So it's kind of interesting. Like if you're playing quite a few teams, maybe you could sprinkle them in, but I don't really have that much interest.
Smiley. So I had someone message me the other day. He's like, "Hey Stevie, can you tell me why Drew Smiley looks like Cy Young?" So I looked into it earlier. So I was looking through it. I mean, outside of the Dodgers just not being as good this year as they have been in years past, he is generating so much more spin this season on his curveball and sinker. Nothing else has really changed. Like velocity and stuff like that really hasn't changed for Drew Smiley. So the only thing that I could see or find was like he's getting a lot more movement on his sinker. And it's huge when you got a sinker that can kind of do that stuff. But like realistically, his swinging strike rate is still the same as it was last year. I mean, pretty much throughout his career, he's been an 11% swing and strike guy. So it's still that rate. His strikeout rate is up about 5%, but I mean, we've seen in the past that like he can live in that like 23% range. So 25 is not too crazy. Big strikeout game, little inflated numbers because of that strikeout game against the Dodgers. So, I mean, I looked, and like I said, this is a guy that throws a sinker 45% to 50% of the time, depending on, the game. And the velocity is it's kind of dipped a little bit, and maybe he's just generating more spin with it. But I mean, that's all I could find. I looked through Baseball Savant, and I mean, I looked at like vertical movement and stuff like that, and like the only thing that I could find on him was, I mean, his curveball slider, whatever you want to call it. It's at a 36.5% whiff rate, and that's what he's generating a lot of his strikeouts with to start the year.
I'll be honest with you, Stevie. You can have him if you want him. I don't.
I didn't say I was playing him. I just said that someone asked me to do a deep dive on him, and I did.
Well, that was a really good deep dive, but you didn't sell me. So, just this matchup, man. It's pretty tough. A lot of really great right-handed bats.
I love this matchup. I played a lot of Steele. I think he was on 2 of my 4 teams I built on Tuesday.
That's a little different though, right?
Is it?
I mean,
is it?
I think it is.
Drew Smiley, 25% K rate this season, -5% hard to soft contact ratio, 40 degrees in Wrigley with the wind blowing in.
So, okay, say you open up projections tomorrow because the bat loves Drew Smiley sometimes. Say you see
he's
him
gonna be
right at the top, what if you see that and
I'm gonna like it even more.
Oh, okay. So his ownership's going to be inflated. All right.
All I'm saying is the Padres might actually not be as good as everybody's giving them credit for. Soto's not good against left-handed pitching. Bogarts he struggled. Like, he's a good contact ground ball hitter against lefties. I watched this guy for how many years in Fenway? Like, he's good at hitting the ball, but he's not good at hitting it hard. Or I mean, like, he's faced 36 left-handed. He has 36 left-handed plate appearances this year. He has a under 100 ISO, 8% K rate, and a 56% ground ball rate. So he's just hitting the ball on the ground, and that's what Drew Smiley does anyway. He tries to get the ball on the ground. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm playing Smiley. I just think it's really interesting. I really hope he doesn't have a lot of ownership and make my decision a little bit easier if I want to play him or not. But I mean, this team might not be that good. They had to roll out like Matt Carpenter and Gresham against Steele on Tuesday. I mean, they don't have that like bottom half of the lineup. Like Cronenworth was in there. I mean, there's enough lefties that Smiley throughout his career has been dominant.
There's no way I'm playing him. There's no way I'm playing him at ownership.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to be highly owned?
I'm just saying, like we talked about, if he's popping in Cardi's or Jamino's projections, like he sometimes does, he does sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, if he's getting talked about as some, high owns value option, I'm going to be a little bit concerned. If he's
Can I sell you on one more thing on Drew Smiley in this spot?
Probably not, but you can try.
The Padres are awful against sinkers.
All right.
I mean, okay. I'm not okay. I don't know how much Smiley I will end up playing, but if Drew Smiley goes out and throws like 6 innings and 8 strikeouts here, it wouldn't shock me. I'll say that. Like, all the stats support like a really solid outing here from Drew Smiley. It's still Drew Smiley. Like, at the end of the day, it's still, it's still Drew Smiley. It's 33-year-old Drew Smiley. I don't know. Anyway. All right. He gives it so many fly balls to righties, and he dominates lefties, man. If they have like 4 or 5 lefties in this lineup, I'm going to have a hard time not playing him. Let's talk Padres bats. What do you like here for the Padres?
I mean, it's not really, my favorite team, but it's, I would love Tatis, especially if Smiley's going to be high owned. I would love Machado. I don't mind taking a shot on Bogarts, obviously, or Cruz. The righties, Nola as a punt, Kim as a punt. It's just it's going to really depend for me on weather and the ownership of Smiley. Like if it's going to be a really really brutal wind blowing in day, cold like we say it is, maybe I'll just stay away from the whole game completely and fade a chalky Drew Smiley, and hope that he gives up 3-4 runs and doesn't get the Ks or something like that. But also San Diego's stat doesn't really go off either.
I mean, so just to kind of give you an idea, Steele was 9% owned today. And we both can kind of say like Steele's probably a better pitcher than Drew Smiley. Big difference in price range. Like $2,600 difference, and Steele's been great this year, but I mean, Drew Smiley's coming off a monster game, so it's I don't know.
I will just say though, I don't mean to hammer this point home too much, but Steele also wasn't popping in projections. So I'm just worried that tomorrow.
Yeah, but if Steele wasn't popping in projections, do you think Smiley's going to be popping in projections against San Diego?
I know I've used the bat for long enough, and I'm sure you have too, that you have seen Drew Smiley at the top of Cardi's system a lot when you're like, huh? How is he the number one pitcher? Like, you have.
I hope tomorrow's not that day. Cubs bats here against Waka. Waka's been bad this year. 5.3 xFIP, allowing over 380 WOBA to both sides, over 220 ISO to both sides of the plate. At least 4 earned runs in 3 of his 4 starts. The one good start that he had this season was against Atlanta, and he absolutely dominated them. Outlier, who knows? Any interest here in the Cubs bats?
They're just a little too expensive, especially if the weather's gonna be bad. They're Hap at 5,100, Swanson at 5K, Suzuki at 4,900. To me, that's just a little too pricey. If home runs are going to be at a premium on a cold day at Wrigley, so I think that I'm mostly out on Chicago.
Hitting conditions were better. I think this is a spot I really have some interest in the Cubs bats. I still might use them as like a secondary stack because, I mean, I do think that this team is really good. Horner, he can run on anybody. Hap is really good. Wisdom has shown like the power that, everyone kind of touted for years for him is actually might be a thing. And my only concern with Wisdom is he is a massive fly ball guy. And I mean, I do worry about like winds blowing in, even at 10% in 40-degree weather. I mean, it's just a game that like overall the weather is going to be affected, like how I approach it. I mean, if this is a 70-degree weather game, I mean, so just to give an idea, right? Cubs were in 40-degree weather, 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in on Tuesday, and looking at Weather Edge, minus 48.7% home runs, plus ERA, plus innings pitch, plus ground balls. So, I mean, RBIs down, huge 67 game sample size. So enough a sample size with weather affecting, like whenever I see minus almost 50% home runs and minus almost 10% runs, like it's really hard for me to say, hey, let's stack this game.
Yeah. It's not a stack for me.
Oakland at LA, taking on the Angels. We got a 9.5 total in this game. Sandoval against, it sounds like it's going to be Luis Medina making his first start of the season here for Oakland. Any interest here in Medina?
Do we know what he's been doing down at AAA? Has he been pitching his regular? I mean, probably not, right? But I don't know. I might have to do a deeper dive because if you have like a high-end stack that you could find for 5K, maybe he'd be worth a tournament flyer. But for the most part, I'm not really interested.
I mean, this guy has a massive, massive arm from everything that I read. I always look into this kind of stuff. So massive arm, massive curveball, and I mean, AAA stuff this season, 27% Ks, 10% swinging strikes. We saw him in AA. Just everything I read on him, it kind of goes back to the conversation we were having yesterday on, was it Manning? Was it Manning that was pitching? Mason Miller. Mason Miller was pitching for Oakland. Like, this is not a MLB ready pitcher. And they just have no reason to leave these guys in the minors right now. So I don't know. Big arm. Like, if you want to take some shots, I'm not going to talk you out of it because, I mean, whenever you have a plus arm with a big curveball, bottom half of this lineup can strike out with the best of them.
And he's 5K.
He's cheap. Yeah, I mean, like, and there's going to be bad taste in people's mouth because, I mean, Miller had a really bad first inning, and I know he had some ownership. I mean, he has 6 strikeouts through 4 innings, so like he's bounced back a little bit. Like, if he didn't have that bad first, he would be sitting a lot better than he is right now. So I think he is definitely playable. He's just too cheap. Like, if we want to pay up for a top arm and get a top stack, like, we're going to end up in this range. He's a punt. Like I said, I'm not going to talk you off of it. Sandoval, other side of this game. Sandoval has struggled with command this season. He's walking. He has 12 walks and 15 strikeouts in 18 innings this year. Walking guy is very high clip. 14%, 17% strikeouts, 5 xFIP. xFIP and Sierra higher than his ERA. Any interest here in Sandoval?
I would say a little bit because we actually kind of know who Sandoval is, and he gets a matchup against Oakland, which is, obviously Oakland is cheap, and they went off on Monday, and that was a great call by you. I was also on guys like Aguilar. So, like, but the way that I look at this slate is that if Elder and Alcantara don't break it, if you get 13, 14, 15 points from your pitcher, you're going to be looking quite good, I think. So if you think Sandoval can do that, which I certainly think he can, I think he's got to be in your tournament pool. He's not somebody that I'm like excited to play, but I think he's okay.
I think he's okay. I mean, I don't love the spots. I do think this team is much better against left-handed pitching. He's better than Suarez. So, like, as we were talking about Suarez on Monday, and like Suarez was getting some ownership, like, he's better than Suarez. The walks, the struggle, like, with walks this season is certainly concerning, and he's given up a lot of hard contact, even though, like, he's generating ground balls. The problem that he might run into here is, like, Roker, Jesus Aguilar, like, these guys are fly ball hitters. I mean, that's why they hit so well against Suarez. Suarez is a ground ball guy too. So I think he's okay. Like you said, if you're MMEing and you want, him as like an SP2, like, and you're making an SP2 group where you're not getting more than like one of those guys, then sure. I don't hate it. Pitching is weird on this slate. Like, we're 7 games through, and like I still don't feel like great about anybody. Like, Elder's fine, but it's not like I don't think Elder's going to go out and score 35 points. So it's a really interesting slate for pitching.
Yeah.
Oakland bats. You like any of these Oakland bats here?
You were all over Oakland on Monday. I played Oakland in cash and in single entry, and I did quite well. They continue to be extremely cheap. Aguilar is still only 2,700. You got both Diaz's 3,000 and 2,700. Langoliers at 3,100. I always forget his name. Brent Rooker, right? I mean, he broke the slate at 3,600. It's and they were low owned, right, Stevie? Like, on Monday, they were pretty low owned stack. So
because people had a lot of interest in Suarez.
Right, exactly. So if you see that same scenario occurring on this slate, I see no reason why you can't try that same angle again, right? Like, for me, a team like this is a better 3-man stack.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but they're great fill-in pieces, and I think they're also great fill-in. I know a lot of people don't play cash, but I think they're a great fill-in for cash games too.
Yeah, I mean Aguilar, Diaz, Roker, Ruiz, I think are all very playable here. Smith, if he still like he's 2,100 shortstop position. I mean, this guy, he's only had 13 at bats this season against lefties, but he has a 364 ISO. So if he's going to be minimum salary, and you can do like a little wraparound maybe, but he's so cheap that it doesn't really matter like at that point. So I don't mind him. He will get pinch hit for. That's the only concern if it's a close game. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate it if you want a minimum salary shortstop. He's so cheap, man. Angels bats. I mean, it's a young pitcher making his debut. Really, I think if you want to play the Angels, you stack him up. You hope that he's not on his game kind of thing. And I mean, Oakland has the worst bullpen in baseball. So like if they do get to him early, you're getting the worst bullpen in baseball. So I think you have to have interest in the Angels stack today. All the points that I made about Medina are fine. And I do think like he has a big arm, but he really hasn't pitched deep into games in AAA yet this season. So if they get to him early here, I mean, this could be a stack that wins you a slate.
Oh, absolutely. This team probably has the highest like overall ceiling if you're going to be running like optos on the slate is probably going to be the Angels. So I love them. I played 3 Oakland, 5 Angels on Monday. You know, I got 180 points. Like I, tripled my money in single entries, and I could see that very same scenario for this slate. So, you know, it all really depends on what you do at your SP2 on DK. Like, I can't play Elder and Alcantara and then stack the Angels, right? But I can play Elder and maybe one of these cheaper options like a Mackenzie Gore or somebody like that, right? Or if I'm feeling really brave, your boy Drew Smiley,
It's happening.
right, something like that. You could, it really depends on what you're doing at SP2, and that's the kind of lineup construction decision for the slate.
Very interesting slate for lineup construction. So I think the Angels are very stackable. I mean, we don't really have to go through like who to stack. I mean, it's Ohtani, Trout, Renfroe, and then 2 cheap bats that crack good lineup spots or something. I mean, you want to get those 3. Those are the 3 big bats in this lineup. All right, we finish it out. St. Louis, San Francisco, 8.5 total. Pick'em game, Mats and DeSclafani. I don't understand why this game's a pick'em game. I know like DeSclafani's been pitching good this season, but I like the Cardinals at almost even money line in this game. Steven Matz, a cheap pitcher that I really like today. If you've listened to the podcast this year, you probably already knew this was kind of coming. Like, I think the Giants are one of the worst teams in baseball against left-handed pitching. I will note, got a little bit more right-handed heavy now. They have options on the bench with Haniger coming back and playing and Slater coming back. Those are 2 good hitters against left-handed pitching. So maybe they get better against left-handed pitching. So I'm a little bit more concerned when I'm facing this team. But, I mean, he's 6K, and this game's in San Francisco. Like, I'm going to have some interest in him here. Like, I know I'm going to end up with some Drew Smiley. I know it. So, like,
you're gonna open up the bat. It's gonna be Drew Smiley and Steven Matz on top of projections.
Yeah, maybe. So like I want to play Elder, and I don't really love like Alcantara. Like in a large field tournament is fine, but like in a main lineup, like I'm probably paying down for SP2, and it's probably Smiley. But in tournaments, like I think like taking some shots here on Mats is definitely playable.
I mean, I think he's going to be extremely high owned. You know, the Giants lead the league in strikeouts. Matz is only 6K. He's a name that people know, right? You don't necessarily trust him, but he's only 6,000, like you said. So I think he's going to be a very, very, very popular option. And then, of course, that kind of leads back to Drew Smiley, right? Like Smiley could end up being the GPP pivot away from a much chalkier Matz, which would, in my eyes, boost Smiley quite a bit because I think Matt's. I didn't realize how cheap he was when we started the
Yeah, he's
show.
so cheap.
I just noticed this price. That was my bad because I didn't even know how cheap he was. So yeah, this is gonna be, I would assume, like the chalkiest SP2, right? Like everyone's gonna be on this matchup.
I wouldn't be shocked that like if we get a very spread out ownership today.
So I think from like an optimal like cash game, it's going to be Elder, Mats as your pitchers, and then it's going to be like a couple Angels, right? A couple Oakland bats. Then I don't know after that, but it's definitely. I think the chalkiest combo is going to be Elder, and Mats.
Bring it on, Drew Smiley. Let's make some money today.
Yeah.
All right, DeSclafani on the other side of this game. I mean, like I said, he's pitched well to start the season, but he's faced the White Sox, the Kansas City Royals, and the Detroit Tigers.
I don't trust him. We've been watching this guy for years now, right? And it's like I don't necessarily trust him. 8,600. There are pitchers above him and below him. I mean, he rates out on this slate, even this really kind of poor pitching slate with that price. He rates out very poorly for me. I'm not really about him today.
Yeah, extremely patient offense. I mean, he has been great this season. If we want to look at like it from a statistics standpoint, he's generating ground balls. He's not walking people, and his strikeout rate is, I mean, really solid. So, like in that aspect, things. But like the numbers are so skewed. He's faced two of the worst offenses in baseball. So we saw him struggle last time out against the Mets. I mean, like we'll see. And like this is one of those like sample size things. Like if we look back to like DeSclafani's numbers last year, I mean, this is a 5x FIP guy, 18% Ks, gives up power to both sides of the plate. Like, I think it is more of just matchups than anything else for DeSclafani here. So I don't have any interest. I have some interest in the Cardinals bats. I don't love the ballpark, so I don't know if it's like a full stack situation, but I think they're very playable today.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. And I think they're going to come with very, very, very low ownership. So, like, I think you could end up getting some really contrarian pieces here. I don't trust DeSclafani. So, I'm all about getting to St. Louis. I think that's going to be a very contrarian stack. Like Wilson Contreras at 4,300 or even like Paul Goldschmidt 6,000. Nobody's going to be playing that, right? Like they're going to be terrified of that price. So I think that he would be like a really, really contrarian one-off.
I don't really have a ton of interest in the Giants bats. I mean, I will say like what I said before. Haniger's back. He's in this lineup. He's 3,900. We know he's good against left-handed pitching. Slater throughout his career has been good against left-handed pitching. If you want to take shots on those two guys and throw in like a JD Davis and make it a 3-man, if Matz is going to be chalky, I don't think I full stack against him. But if you want a little bit of a contrarian like 3-man, those would be the three guys I'd be targeting here. I mean, the pinch hit risk is always there. They bring in a righty and Jock Peterson's on the bench. You know that, I mean, this guy is just waiting to get in that bat at some point in the game. So,
yeah.
I mean, we saw it against Montgomery, so I mean, that's the only downside to taking shots on the Giants here. But maybe if they get up by enough and Matz doesn't pitch well and you're doing what you needed to do against that, maybe they don't even worry about pinch hitting these guys because they're up and they give like full days off.
Yeah, it's tough because it could be a leverage spot if Matz is going to be super, super chalky. But I'm not really that excited to play them. I think there's just way better spots on the board.
All right, let's go play the morning grind game so we can get out of here and go tilt this Arizona game because there's not enough runs being scored and it's tilting me. Under 8,000 to get 6 or more strikeouts. Who do you got today?
Under 8K. I'll go Gore.
I'm going Drew Smiley. We all knew it was coming. Over 8K to score under 15 points. Who's your bust today?
Over 8K?
Yep.
Descalfani.
I'm going to go Tajon Walker.
That's a good one, yeah.
Over 4,000 to hit a home run. Who do you got going yard today?
I think if you want like a sneaky one, I really like Paul Goldschmidt.
I am going all the way to the top today. I love this spot. He might hit 2 today. Give me Ohtani to go yard today. Under 4K to get 2 hits.
Brent Rooker.
I like it. Good pick. That's who I wrote down. Hold on, I gotta find somebody real quick.
Just go the guy who's gonna bat behind him. That was my next pick.
Jesus Aguilar.
Yeah.
Now, what's the fun in that? Hold on. I'll find somebody. I thought I'd find somebody faster. Oh, Kelenic.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I hope the weather stays up in that game. I like him a lot today.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just, he is living up to the hype finally. It's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Stack to score 6 or more runs. Who do you got?
Well, you just reminded me about them. I forgot about them. Seattle. I love them.
I hate going first sometimes or second. I love Seattle today. I think it's a great spot for them. Like I said, I really like the spot for I like the spot for I think I got to go Oakland against Sandoval to score 6 or more runs. St. Louis and Seattle were like my 1-2. They're probably my 2 favorite stacks today. I mean, this is a good slate. Like, there's so many different ways to approach this slate. It makes it such a good slate overall. So, I mean, as far as just like playable slate, this slate's fun. So looking forward to this one.
There's not any pitcher or stack, I think, that's going to get way out of hand in terms of ownership. And on a smallish slate, that's pretty rare, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's just so many ways to build on this slate. So, I mean, in that aspect, it's so much fun. So,
yeah.
All right, we're going to get out of here. Hope everyone has a fantastic Wednesday. We'll be back tomorrow on Thursday talking more baseball. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you then.